test, and you are willing to testify here. Here you are, subject to professional cross-examination by a prosecutor.
It's getting good now.
You've met any condition any prosecutor could expect to go forward, and yet there has been no sincere or thorough investigation of your claims.
Right. You could have been doing that for 45 fucking days.
Investigation, did you not?
But no, you decided to wait till after the Kavanaugh hearing, confirmation hearings, and then go.
Are you aware that
let's
when
do it now.
Begins investigating, they might find corroborative evidence and they might find exculpatory evidence?
I don't know what exculpatory evidence is.
Not helpful to your recollection and version of events, helpful to the accused.
White House. This guy's a dick.
So it could go either way.
Yes.
And you were still
he is
not just willing, but insistent that the FBI should investigate your recollection and your claim.
Yes, I feel like I could be more helpful in that, if that was the case, in providing some of the details that maybe people are wanting to know about.
And as we know, they didn't. And I submit that never in the history of background investigations.
Oh, here we go.
Has an investigation not been pursued when new, credible, derogatory information was brought forward about the nominee or the candidate? I don't think this has ever happened in the history of FBI background
You could have been doing this.
Maybe somebody can prove me wrong.
While she wanted to remain private, you could have been doing this.
And out of character. And in my view, it is a grave disservice to you, and I want to take this moment to apologize to you for that, and to report to anybody who might be listening that when somebody's willing to come forward, even under those circumstances, even having been not given the modicum of courtesy and support of a proper investigation, you've shown yourself particularly proud in doing that. And the responsibility for the decision to have this be, I think, the only background investigation in history to be stopped as derogatory information came forward belongs with 13 men. The President, Director Wray of the FBI.
FBI doesn't do this. There was no police file report filed. This is just dumb.
As to the committee's investigation,
this is one of their talking points.
Mr. Kavanaugh's alleged accomplice has not been subpoenaed, has not been examined and cross-examined under oath, has not been interviewed by the FBI.
Well, according to you guys, this isn't a court case, so shut up.
This performance is. The very bare minimum that a person who comes forward is owed is sincere and thorough investigation, and you've been denied that, and I will make a personal pledge to you here that however long it takes, in whatever forum I can do it, whenever it's possible, I will do whatever is in my power to make sure that your claims get a full and proper investigation, and not just this. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, well, that's a relief.
Since this issue's come up so many times, I'd like to comment.
Here it goes. Listen.
New Yorker published an anonymous account of allegations September the 14th. 2 days later, Dr. Ford identified herself as the victim in a Post article detailing her allegations. I immediately directed my staff to investigate. September the 17th, Dr. Ford's counsel went on several television shows requesting that her client have an opportunity to tell her story. The same day, I scheduled a hearing for Monday, September the 24th, giving Dr. Ford a week to prepare her testimony and come to Washington, D.C. On September the 17th, committee investigative staff reached out to Dr. Ford
she got her caffeine
to schedule follow-up interviews with Republican and Democrat investigators. Judge Kavanaugh accepted the opportunity to speak to the investigators under criminal penalty. Dr. Ford declined. In his interview on September the 17th, Judge Kavanaugh denied the allegations and requested a hearing as soon as possible. Democratic staff refused to participate in that interview. The next day, September the 18th, committee investigative staff contacted Mark Judge requesting an interview. Committee staff also learned the identity of 2 other alleged partygoers and requested interviews. Mark Judge submitted a statement under penalty of felony, denying knowledge of the party described by Dr. Ford,
right,
and states that he never saw Brandt
denied under penalty, right? Yet yesterday, Blumenthal comes out and champions. We have a statement from someone under penalty of an oath sworn state. So it's all good to him, but this isn't good enough. They want an investigation on this.
Then it comes to us.
Right.
And there's always some holes in it that we have to follow up on. And besides,
Mr. Chairman,
we're responding to Dr. Ford's request to tell her story. That's why we're here.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Mitchell, go for
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that to support what Senator Whitehouse said, in the Anita Hill case,
Can we hear from Dr. Ford?
George Bush ordered that the investigation be opened again.
Ms. Mitchell, will you proceed for Senator
Well, we didn't.
Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Ford, the Washington Post reported in their September 16th article that you did show them therapist notes. Is that incorrect?
I don't remember physically showing her a note.
Okay.
Perhaps my counsel did. I don't remember physically showing her my copy of the note.
Okay.
But I just don't remember. I'm sorry. I have retrieved a physical copy of those medical records.
Okay, thank you. Yes. You also attended individual therapy. Did you show any of those notes to the reporter from the Washington Post?
Again, I don't remember if I showed her like something that I summarized or if I just spoke about it, or if she saw it in my counsel's office. I don't know for sure, but I certainly spoke with her about the 2013 record with the individual therapist.
And Brett Kavanaugh's name is not in those notes, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. In reading the Washington Post article, it mentions that this incident that we're here about contributed to anxiety and PTSD problems with which you have struggled. The word contributed, does that mean that there are other things that have happened that have also contributed to anxiety and PTSD?
I think that's a great question. I think the etiology of anxiety and PTSD is multifactorial. So that was certainly a critical risk that we would call it a risk factor in science. So that would be a predictor of the symptoms that I now have. It doesn't mean that other things that have happened in my life would make it worse or better. There are other risk factors as well.
So have there been other things then that have contributed to the anxiety and PTSD that you suffered?
Well, I think there's sort of biological predispositions that everyone in here has for particular disorders. So I can't rule out that I would have some biological predisposition to be
What about
an anxious type person.
What about environmental?
Environmentally, not that I can think of.
Oh, I thought you was going to go off on global
Certainly
warming.
Nothing as striking as that event.
Okay. In your interview with the Washington Post, you said that you told your husband early in your marriage that you had been a victim of, and I quote, physical abuse. In your statement, you said that before you were married, you told him that you had experienced, quote, a sexual assault. Do these two things refer to the same incident?
Yes.
And at either point on these two times, did you use any names?
No.
Okay. May I ask, Dr. Ford, how did you get to Washington?
In an airplane.
Okay. I asked that because it's been reported by the press that you would not submit to an interview with the committee because of your fear of flying. Is that true?
Well, I was hoping that they would come to me, but then realized that was an unrealistic request.
No, they offered
It would
to.
have been a quicker trip for me.
They offered to.
Yes. So
She still said no.
that was certainly what I was hoping, was to avoid having to get on an airplane, but I eventually was able to get up the gumption with the help of some friends and get on the plane.
When you were here in the mid-Atlantic area back in August, end of July, August. How did you get here?
Also by airplane. I come here once a year during the summer to visit my family.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not here. I go to Delaware.
Okay. In fact, you fly fairly frequently for your hobbies, and you've had to fly for your work. Is that true?
Correct, unfortunately.
You were a consulting biostatistician in Sydney, Australia. Is that right?
I've never been to Australia, but the company that I worked for is based in Australia, and they have an office in San Francisco, California.
Okay.
I don't think I'll make it to Australia.
It is long. I also saw on your CV that you list the following interests of surf travel, and you, in parentheses, put Hawaii, Costa Rica, South Pacific Islands, and French Polynesia. Have you been all to those places?
Correct.
By airplane?
Yes.
And your interests also include oceanography, Hawaiian and Tahitian culture. Did you travel by air as a part of those interests?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Easier for me to travel going that direction when it's a vacation.
Oh, well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That
Thank you
doesn't
for being
wash.
here, Dr. Ford. You know, in my old job as a prosecutor, we investigated reports like this. So it gave me a window on the types of cases that hurt women and hurt all of us. And I would always tell the women that came before us that they were going to have to tell their story before a jury box of strangers. And you've had to tell your story before the entire nation. For so many years, people swept cases like yours under the rug. They'd say what happens inside a house didn't belong in the courthouse. Well,
What about
times have
Vegas?
changed. So I just want to thank you for coming forward today and for sharing your report with us. Now, I understand that you've taken a polygraph test. Dr. Ford, that found that you were being truthful when you described what happened to you.
There's so many
Can
ways
you
to
tell
beat
us why you
one. Plus, the
decided to
questions
take
they
that
asked
test?
were like 3.
I was meeting with attorneys. I was interviewing various attorneys, and the attorneys asked if I was willing to take it, and I said absolutely. That said, it was almost as anxiety-provoking as an airplane
And because of
flight.
her memory thing and the psychotherapist
And
involvement,
you talked about your
she truly
recollections,
believes what she's
and
saying.
seeing Mark Judge
That's the
at
whole point of this.
Safeway. If there had been an
She truly
appropriate
believes what she's
reopening
saying.
of this background check and
That's the
FBI
dangerous part of
interviews,
this whole thing.
Would that
So, of
help
course,
you
she'd pass
find
a
the time
polygraph.
period if you knew when he worked at that Safeway?
I feel like I could be much more helpful if I could be provided with that date through employment records or the IRS or something, anything that
Thank
would
you.
help.
I would assume that's true. Dr. Ford, under federal law,
Never
I don't
assume.
expect you know this, but statements made to medical professionals are considered to be more reliable. There's a federal rule of evidence about this. You told your counselor about this back in 2012, is that right?
My therapist, my individual therapist, correct.
Right. And I understand that your husband was also present when you spoke about this incident in front of a counselor, and he recalls you using Judge Kavanaugh's name. Is that right?
Yes, I just have to slow down a minute because I might have been confusing. So there were 2 separate incidents
Yes.
where it's reflected in my medical record. I talked about it more than those 2 times, but therapists don't typically write down content as much as they write down process. They usually are tracking your symptoms and not your story and the facts. I just happened to
Right.
have it in my record twice. So the first time is in 2012 with my husband in couples therapy with the quibbling over the remodel. And then in 2013 with my individual
Okay.
therapist.
So if someone had actually done an investigation, your husband would have been able to say that you named his name at that time.
Correct.
Okay. I know
Correct.
you've been
2012.
concerned with your privacy throughout the process, and you first requested that your account be kept confidential. Can you briefly tell us why?
Yes. So as I stated
Seat shift.
before, once I was unsuccessful in getting my information to you before the candidate was chosen. My original intent was to get the information when there was still a list of other candidates available. And once that was not successful, and I saw that persons were very supportive of the nominee, I tracked it all summer and realized that when I was calculating that risk-benefit ratio, that it looked like I was going to just, suffer only for no reason.
Okay. From my experience with memory, I remember distinctly things that happened to me in high school or happened to me in college, but I don't exactly remember the date. I don't exactly remember the time. I sometimes may not even remember the exact place where it occurred, but I remember the interaction. And many people are focused today on what you're not able to remember about that night. I actually think you remember a lot. I'm going to phrase it a little differently. Can you tell us what you don't forget about that night?
The stairwell, the living room, the bedroom, the bed on the right side of the room. As you walk into the room, there was a bed to the right. The bathroom in close proximity. The laughter, the uproarious laughter, and the multiple attempts to escape and the final ability to do so.
She forgot the high fives.
Yeah,
bro.
Dr. Ford, I want to correct the record, but it's not something that I'm saying that you stated wrongly, because you may not know the fact that when you said that you didn't think it was possible for us to go to California as a committee or our investigators to go to California to talk to you, we did, in fact, offer that to you, and we had the capability of doing it, and we would have done it anywhere or anytime. So,
thank you.
And Mr. Chairman,
See,
could I put the polygraph
I bet they told her
results
attorneys
on the,
that.
record, please?
Her attorneys didn't even tell her.
Polygraph results in the record.
without it,
But is there any objection?
See?
well, let us
I
see
bet
the-
that's what it was.
The polygraph?
Because they offered it
Wanna
to
all
her
see it?
You hold just a minute, please.
I think you may have it.
a long time ago.
Yeah, can we have the underlying?
It's like,
chart?
we offered it to her.
The
They offered it to you,
underlying
but we didn't tell you.
I have the polygraph results that I would just like to put in the record.
Polygraph is not admissible in court anyway. And I know this isn't a court, but
Mr. Chairman, we had proposed having the polygraph examiner testify, as you know. If that had happened, the full panoply of materials that he had supporting his examination would have been provided. You rejected that request, so what we did provide was the polygraph report, which is what the members of the committee.
we already saw the polygraph guy.
He
was on all the news networks last night.
To your chief counsel.
There's
and
really
I just
nothing
want
to
share
tell.
it with America so that they have this report as well.
Okay, we will accept without objection what you have asked us to include, but we're also requesting and expect the other materials that I've just stated.
But, Mr. Chairman, you wouldn't allow the underlying witness who performed the polygraph test to testify, nor would you allow Mark Judge to testify. And so I would just like to point out, thank you for allowing this report in the record, but that is the reason
They have a
that we
sworn
don't have the
statement from
underlying
Mark.
information for you.
You got what you wanted, and I think you'd be satisfied.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
am satisfied with that, thank you.
Senator, go ahead.
when was the polygraph administered?
2012.
Was administered on August 7th,
When was it
2018.
when
And
was
it
it-
was, the date of the report is August 10th, 2018, Mr.
When was it provided to the committee?
Let's just see if we can't do this in a more orderly way.
Well, he was asking, and I have it right here, and you have it as well. It was
We've accepted
September
it.
26th.
We've accepted it.
All right.
Ms. Mitchell for Senator Cruz.
Thank you.
See, they didn't address the travel thing. She didn't know about it. They asked her a
Talked
week
about the
ago,
day-
2 weeks
the
ago.
night that you've
We'll come
described
to
in the
you.
Summer of 1982, and
Her
thank you
attorneys
for being
probably didn't even
willing
tell
to
her.
do that.
Because they were
I
playing
know it's
games. They were playing
I'd
a
like to
con
shift
game,
gears
folks. A big
and
con
discuss
job.
the last several
Believe me,
months.
that I can tell you.
In
I believe
your
it.
statement,
But like I said, I
you
think
said
she
that on
believes what she's
July
saying.
6th, you had a, quote,
she's
sense of
nuts.
urgency to relay the
We'll know when we
information
see
to the
Kavanaugh.
Senate and the president. Did you contact either the Senate or the president on or before July 6th?
No, I did not know how to do that.
Okay. Prior to July 6th, had you spoken to any member of Congress, and when I say Congress, I mean the Senate or the House of Representatives, or any congressional staff members about your allegations?
No.
Why did you contact the Washington Post then on July 6th?
So I was panicking because I knew the timeline was short for the decision, and people were giving me advice on the beach, people who don't know about the processes, but they were giving me advice, and many people told me, you need to hire a lawyer, and I didn't do that. I didn't understand why I would need a lawyer. Somebody said, call the New York Times, call the Washington Post, put in an anonymous tip, go to your congressperson. And when I weighed those options, I felt like the best option was to try to do the civic route, which is to go to my congressperson.
What does she do for a living, this woman?
So I called her office, and I also put in the anonymous tip to the Washington Post, and unfortunately, neither got back to me before the selection of the nominee.
You testified that Congresswoman Eshu's office contacted you on July 9th. Is that right?
They contacted me the date that the nominee was announced, so that seems likely.
Had you talked about your allegations with anyone in her office before the date of July 9th?
I told the receptionist on the phone.
Okay. On July 10th, you texted the Washington Post again, which was really the third time, is that right? Second date, third time.
Let's see.
One moment.
Correct.
And you texted, been advised to contact senators or New York Times, haven't heard back from Washington Post. Who advised you to contact senators or the New York Times?
Beach friends, coming up with ideas of how I could try to get
That's not
people, because people weren't responding.
That's not a credible thing to talk about beach
Very
friends.
quickly, they responded to that text for what unknown reason.
You ever known someone who just like, I live on the beach and it's great. I love the beach.
Responded very quickly.
Did you
Something to be said
contact
about
the New
all
York
these types of
Times?
people that
No.
live on the
Why
beach.
not?
I wasn't interested in pursuing the media route particularly, so I felt like one was enough, the Washington Post, and I was nervous about doing that. My preference was to talk with my congressperson.
The Washington Post texted back that someone would get you in touch with a reporter. Did you subsequently talk to a reporter with the Washington Post?
Yes, under the encrypted app and off the record.
Okay. Who was that reporter?
Cryptid
Emma
app.
Brown.
Okay. The person who ultimately wrote the story on September 16th?
Correct.
Okay. Did you talk to any member of Congress, and again, remember, Congress includes the Senate or the House of Representatives, or any congressional staff members about your allegations between July 10th and July 30th, which was the date of your letter to Senator Feinstein?
Yes, I met with Congresswoman Eshu's staff, and I think that's July 18th.
There's
on
just
the
something not
Wednesday,
right about
and
this
then
woman.
On the Friday, I met with the Congresswoman herself.
Okay. When you met with her, did you
Beach
meet with
friends.
her alone, or did someone come with you?
I was alone. She had a staff person.
Okay. What did you talk about with Congresswoman Eshu and her staff on July 18th and the 20th?
I described the night of the incident, and we spent time speaking about that. And I asked her what my options were in terms of going forward and how to get that information relayed forward. And also talked to her about fears of whether this was confidential information, and she discussed the constituent confidentiality principle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to submit for the record 5 articles, including one titled Why Sexual Assault Memories Stick, and one entitled Why Didn't Kavanaugh Accuser Come Forward Earlier? police often ignore sexual assault allegations.
Without objection, so ordered.
Dr. Ford, I want to begin by thanking you for coming to testify in front of us today. You came forward with very serious and relevant information about a nominee for a lifetime position on our Supreme Court. You didn't have to, and I know you've done it at great personal cost. This is a public service, and I want you to know that I'm grateful to have the opportunity to hear from you directly today.
So
I'd like to just first follow up on that line of questioning Ms. Mitchell was following, because I think a lot of people don't realize that you chose to come forward.
I was looking at what she does for a living. Now it all comes
before he
clear.
was nominated to the Supreme Court. Do I understand correctly that when you first reached out to Congresswoman Eshoo,
Who's this now?
and to the Washington Post tip line, that was when he was on the short list, but before he was nominated to the Supreme Court? Is that correct?
Correct.
And if I understood your testimony earlier, it's that you were motivated by a sense of civic duty and frankly, a hope that some other highly qualified nominee might be picked, not out of a motivation at a late stage to have an impact on the final decision.
Did they?
Correct. I felt it was very important to get the information to you, but I didn't know how to do it while there was still a short list of candidates.
Thank you, Doctor. According to Justice Department data, about 2/3 of sexual assault survivors don't report
Is this
their
that bald
assaults.
guy?
Based on your experience,
Did the Republicans set this
I'd be
thing up
interested
so
in
that
hearing
the
from you
Republicans
about
just
this,
like
because
stand
you
back
bore
like this and
alone.
don't ask any
You bore this
questions?
alone for
I
a
sure hope
very
the hell
long
not.
time. And it'd be helpful
They've
for
given
us to
these
better
people way
understand
too
the ways
much.
that that's impacted your whole life.
Well, it's impacted me at different stages of the development of my life. So the immediate impact was probably the worst. So the first 4 years, I think I described earlier, a fairly disastrous first 2 years of undergraduate studies at University of North Carolina, where I was finally able to pull myself together. And then once coping with the immediate impacts, the short-term impacts, I experienced like longer-term impacts of anxiety and relationship challenges.
Thank you for sharing that. And yet you went on to get...
Well, none of us have ever had that, have we?
Is that correct?
Correct.
As you
There's something weird about her.
there was a wide range of
Disheveled,
responses
her hair
to your
part
coming
is like
forward.
really, it's not even
Some,
straight. You
thousands
just
of
don't see
survivors
that.
have been motivated and inspired by your courage. Others
She's a
have
year
been
younger than I
critical.
am.
As I've reviewed
Believe
the
me,
wide
that I
range
can
of
tell you.
reactions, I've been really troubled by the excuse offered by too many, that this was a high school incident and boys will be boys. To me, that's just far too low a standard for the conduct of boys and men in our country. If you would, I'd appreciate your reaction to the excuse that boys will be boys.
Well, they will be.
I can only speak for how it has impacted me greatly for the last
usually with
36
each other.
years, even though I was 15 years old at the time.
Stop it.
And I think, the younger you are when these things happen, it could possibly have worse impact than when you're when your brain is fully developed and you have better coping skills that you've developed.
Experts have written about how it's common for sexual assault survivors to remember some facts about the experience very sharply and very clearly, but not others. And that has to do with the survival mode that we go into in experiencing trauma. Is that your experience, and is that something you can help the layperson understand?
Yes, I was definitely experiencing the fight or flight mode. Is that what you're referring to? Yes, so I was definitely experiencing the surge of adrenaline and cortisol and norepinephrine, and credit
for
that
God's
a little bit
sakes.
for my ability to get out of the situation, but also some other lucky events that occurred that allowed me to
You
get out
forgot
of the event.
THC and
Dr. Ford, we are grateful that you came through it and that you shared your account with us and the American people. And I think you've provided important information. I'd like to thank you for your meeting your civic duty. I wish we could have provided for you a more thorough hearing today. I think asking for the FBI to investigate this matter thoroughly was not asking too much. I think asking to have the other individual involved in your assault, Mark Judge, appear before us today was not asking too much. I'm grateful you came forward, and I'm thankful for your courage, which set an important example.
apparently it was.
Thank you, Dr. Ford.
Ms. Mitchell for Senator Sass.
Dr. Ford, we were talking about you meeting in July with Congresswoman Eshoo. Did you talk about your allegations with any Republican member of Congress or congressional staff?
I did not. Where I live, the Congresswoman is a Democrat.
Okay. Was it communicated to you by your counsel or someone else that the committee had asked to interview you and that they offered to come out to California to do so?
We're going to object, Mr. Chairman, to any call for privileged conversations between counsel and Dr. Ford.
Why? Why?
Could
This
we-
isn't a
could
court
you
of law,
validate
remember?
the fact that the offer was made without her saying a word?
Is it possible for that question to be answered without violating any consul relationships?
Can I say something to you? Do you mind if I say something to you directly?
Yeah.
I just appreciate that you did offer that. I wasn't clear on what the offer was. If you were going to come out to see me, I would have happily hosted you and had been happy to speak with you out there. I just did not, it wasn't clear to me that that was the case.
How was that not clear?
Does that take care of your question?
No,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, proceed then.
no. That's ridiculous.
Before July 30th, the date on your letter to Senator Feinstein, had you retained counsel
No.
With regard to these allegations?
No, I didn't understand why I would need lawyers, actually. So I just didn't know.
A lot of people have that feeling. Let's talk about the letter that you wrote on July 30th.
There's no
You
Republicans
asked
asking
Senator
any questions.
Feinstein to make confidentiality, quote, until.
Wait until she retrieves it.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to look for it, which one.
Unless they come next or something? I don't know. I just don't understand this.
It's in there someplace. No. Here it is.
Oh, I found it.
There it is. You got
Sorry.
it.
Okay. You asked Senator Feinstein to maintain confidentiality until we have had further opportunity to speak, and then said you were available to speak further, vacationing in the Mid-Atlantic until August 7th. Is that correct?
Oh, the
Right there.
last line, is that what you're, I'm now just catching up with you. Sorry, I'm a little slower. My mind is getting a little tired. I am available to speak further should you wish to discuss. Yes, I was in Delaware until August.
My
7th.
mind is getting a little tired. How long has she been there?
After that, I went to New Hampshire and then back to
See?
California.
Did you talk
Democrats.
with anybody about this letter before
Modern
you sent
Democrat.
I talked with Anna Eshoo's office.
it? Okay. And why did you talk to Congresswoman Eshoo's office about that letter?
Because they were willing to hand deliver it to Senator Feinstein.
Okay. Did anyone help you write the letter?
No.
Okay.
No.
After you sent your letter, did you or anyone on your behalf speak to Senator Feinstein personally or with any Senate staffer?
Yes.
Okay.
I had a phone call with Senator Feinstein.
Okay, and when was that?
That was while I was still in Delaware, so before August 7th.
Okay. And how many times did you speak with Senator Feinstein?
Once.
Okay. What did you talk about?
She asked me some questions about the incident,
Okay.
and I answered those questions.
And what?
Was that the extent of the gist of the conversation?
Yes, it was a fairly brief phone call.
Okay. Did you ever give Senator Feinstein or anyone else the permission to release that letter?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. Between the letter
She
dated
did.
July 30th and August the 7th, did you speak with any other person about your allegations?
Could you say the dates again?
Between the letter date of July 30th and August 7th, so while you were still in Delaware, did you speak with any other person about your allegations?
I'm just trying to remember what dates that,
Aside from my beach friends, I mean,
Stop the,
You're asking her with the
Yeah,
exclusion
stop
of any lawyers
stop
that
the
she may
clock.
have spoken with, correct?
no.
Correct.
Anybody.
oh, correct.
Oh,
I think
lawyers.
correct then. I was interviewing lawyers,
Start
but
the
I
clock.
was not
Okay.
speaking personally about it.
Aside from lawyers that you were seeking to possibly hire to represent you, did you speak to anybody else about it during that period of time?
No.
Okay.
I was staying with my parents at the time.
Did you talk to them about it?
Definitely not.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that you retained counsel during that time period of July 30th to August 7th?
I can't remember the exact
Why
date.
wouldn't
but
she
it was
tell her parents
I
about it?
was
She's a
interviewing
grown
lawyers During
adult.
that period of time, sitting in the car,
At this
in the
point.
driveway, and in the
Has she
Walgreens
learned
parking
nothing?
lot in Rehoboth, Delaware, and trying to figure out how the whole system works of interviewing lawyers and how to pick one, et cetera. So.
You testified earlier that you had, you didn't see the need for lawyers, and now you're trying to hire them. What made you change your mind?
It seemed like most of the individuals that I had told, which didn't, the total was not very high, but those persons advised me to, at this point, get a lawyer for advice about whether to push forward or to stay back.
Did that include Congresswoman Eshoo and Senator Feinstein?
No.
Okay.
You know, if you
One
take the
thing,
kink
Dr.
out of that
Ford,
mic,
for
you wouldn't have to
what you
bend
said
over
about,
so far.
Acknowledging that we had said we'd come to California. Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Blumenthal.
I want to join in.
The liar. He's a liar.
Today,
Said he was in Vietnam and he
and,
wasn't. He lied. He got caught. Why is he getting to ask anything?
I have found your testimony.
This guy's a
powerful,
dishonest pig. I can't
incredible,
stand this guy.
And I believe you.
Of course you believe her. You
teacher.
believed yourself. You said you were in Vietnam. Oh, well,
Well, you
turned
have
out I
given
wasn't.
America
Looks like Gollum.
an amazing teaching moment.
Creepy, this
And
guy.
You may have other moments in the classroom, but you have inspired and you have enlightened America.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have
Make it sound good, Bloomer.
inspired and given courage to women to come forward, as they have done to every one of our offices and many other public places.
Even those who are lying.
You have inspired and you have enlightened men in America
Who's that new chick?
to listen
When they
respectfully
said they pulled a train on her?
to women survivors and men
Freaking liar.
who have survived sexual attack.
The boyfriend
And
of
that
hers
is a
has already
profound
come
public
forward
service,
saying she's a
regardless
psycho. Don't believe her. She
what
threatened me,
happens
my
with
baby,
this
everything.
nomination. And so the teachers of
FYI.
America, people of America, should be really proud of what you have done.
What was her
Let me
name?
tell you why I believe you. Not only because of the prior consistent
Oh, yes.
statements
Tell us
and
why you
polygraph
believe
tests
her.
and your request for an FBI investigation and your urging that
Sweatnick?
this committee hear from other witnesses who could corroborate or dispute your story. But also, you have been very honest about what you cannot remember. And
Well, if she can't
someone
remember, she's just going to say she
composing
can't remember
story
that to make her honest.
can make
Jesus.
it all come together.
Con
in
job.
a
You say, folks,
seamless
con job. I
way,
told you. It's a
but
con job.
someone
Total
who is
con job.
honest, I speak from my experience as a prosecutor as well, is also candid about what she or he cannot remember. The senators on the other side of the aisle have been silent. This procedure is unprecedented in a confirmation hearing. But I want to quote one of my colleagues, Senator Lindsey Graham, in a book that he wrote in 2015 when he
Here
was
we go.
describing his own service.
I think the Republicans
very
set this up so that they don't
distinguished
say
naval
anything.
service
That's
as a
stupid.
trial lawyer. I'm not under oath. He said, quote, of his prosecutions of rape cases, I learned how much unexpected courage from a deep and hidden place it takes for a rape victim or sexually abused child to testify against their assailants. I learned how much courage from a deep and hidden place it takes for a rape victim or sexually abused child to testify against their assailant.
And?
If we agree on nothing else today, I hope on a bipartisan basis, we can agree on how much courage it has taken for you to come forward.
What, there's no
And
tissues
I think you have
there?
earned America's
You're just going to let her
gratitude.
cry? Don't bring any
Now,
tissues. It looks better.
There's been some talk about
You
you
serious?
requesting an FBI investigation, and you mentioned a point
There's
just
a woman
few
back
minutes
here
ago
crying way in the back. There,
that
see her.
you could better estimate the
I'm not making fun of women being
time
abused.
that
I'm just
you
making fun of
ran
this
into
particular
Mark
case.
Judd.
You gotta, please,
If
you know, understand
knew
that.
the time that he was working
Just real
at that
skeptical here.
supermarket. That's
There
a
are
fact
people
that
who
could
truly
be
believe what they're
uncovered
saying, and
by
they're
an
nuts.
FBI investigation.
You gotta
that would
remember
help
that.
Further elucidate your account. Would you like Mark Judge to be interviewed in connection with the background investigation and the serious, credible allegations that you've made?
You better say yes.
That would be my preference. I'm not sure it's really up to me, but I certainly would feel like I could be more helpful to everyone if I knew the date that he worked at the Safeway so that I could give a more specific date of the assault.
Well, it's not up to you. It's up to the President of the United States. And his failure to ask
Oh, here we go.
for an FBI investigation, in my view, is tantamount to a cover-up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, it's another cover-up. Oh, it's collusion. Here we go again.
Senator Flake, Ms. Mitchell for Senator Flake.
Thank you. We've heard this morning several times that
Republicans
you did
aren't
take a
gonna ask
polygraph,
anything.
and that
They're
was
so
on
stupid.
August the 7th, is that right?
We're gonna give them everything.
I believe so as the day I was flying
That's
from
dumb.
BWI to Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay. Why did you decide to take a polygraph?
I didn't see any reason not to do it.
Were you advised to do that?
Again, you're seeming to call for communications between counsel and client. I don't think you mean to do that. If you do, she shouldn't have to answer that.
Counsel, could you let her?
I don't like him right away.
Doesn't violate the relationship between you and.
Come on,
Dr.
Grassley,
Ford?
get it out. This is a station. Yeah, I don't like this guy at all. What the hell's what does that matter? The question she asked her. I thought this wasn't a court of law.
Based on the advice of the council, I
Will
was
you
happy
straighten out the
to
mic?
undergo the polygraph test, although I found it extremely stressful, much longer than I anticipated.
Well, yeah.
I told my whole life story, I felt like, but
No,
I
you
endured
didn't.
It was fine.
No, you didn't.
I understand they can be that way.
You
Have
didn't.
you
She
ever
hardly
taken
said anything.
any other
There were very
polygraphs
few
in your
questions.
life?
They said, okay, we're
Never.
done.
Okay. You went to see a gentleman by the name of Jeremiah Hanifin to serve as the polygrapher. Did anyone advise you on that choice?
Yes, I believe his name was Jerry.
Jerry Hanifin.
Yeah,
Okay. Did anyone advise you on that choice?
I don't understand that. Yeah, I didn't choose him myself. He was the person that came to do the polygraph test.
Okay. He actually conducted the polygraph not in his office in Virginia, but actually at the hotel next to Baltimore Washington Airport. Is that right?
Correct.
Why was that location chosen for the polygraph?
I had left my grandmother's funeral at Fort Lincoln Cemetery that day and was on tight schedule to get a plane to Manchester, New Hampshire. So he was willing to come to me, which was appreciated.
So he administered a polygraph on the day that you attended your grandmother's funeral?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Or it might have been the next day. I spent the night in the hotel.
Might have been. Oh, I'm not sure.
I don't remember the exact date.
I don't remember. I think you'd remember something like that. Excuse me. I think you'd remember that, okay?
Have you ever had discussions with
Con job.
anyone besides your attorneys
This is
on
nuts.
how to take a polygraph?
Never.
And I don't just mean countermeasures, but I mean just any sort of tips or anything like that.
No, I was scared of the test itself, but was comfortable that I could tell the information and the test would reveal.
Especially,
you know,
after my grandma's funeral.
As long as it was going to be. So
in a
it was little bit
hotel.
Stressful.
Have you ever given tips or advice to somebody who was looking to take a polygraph test?
Never.
Never. Should we believe
Did
you?
you pay for the polygraph yourself?
I don't think so.
Okay. Do you know who did pay for the polygraph?
Not yet, no.
Uh-huh.
Did you have the handwritten statement that you wrote out? Did anyone assist you in writing that statement?
No, but you can tell how anxious I was by the terrible handwriting.
Did you, we touched on it earlier, did you know that the committee has requested not only the charts from the polygraph test, but also any audio or video recording of the polygraph test?
No.
Okay. Were you audio and video recorded when you were taking that test?
Okay, so I remember being hooked up to a machine, like being placed onto my body, and being asked a lot of questions and crying a lot. That's my primary memory of that test. I don't know. I know he took laborious detail into explaining what he was going to be doing, but I was just focused on kind of what I was going to say and my fear about that. I wasn't listening to every detail about whether it was audio or video recorded.
Well, you were in a hotel room, right?
Correct.
Regular hotel room with a bed and bathroom?
No. It was a conference room. So I was sitting at a chair and he was behind me.
Did you note any cameras in the room?
Well, he had a computer set up, so I guess I assumed that he was somehow taping and recording me.
Okay, so you assumed you were being video and audio recorded?
Correct.
But you don't know for sure?
I don't know for sure.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to recess now for a half hour for lunch. Thank you, Dr. Ford.
We're going to keep going until then. No, said he had a photo.
Yeah.
Let's go on another 2 days. Jesus criminy. All right. Well, wasn't that fun? So, I don't know. What did we learn out of that? That the attorney on her on her right side is a dick? Yikes. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So, well, good. Well, while we're watching them all high five one another, good job. Okay, real quick, because I'm going to take a break from the station as well. So, I don't know what you're getting out of this. What I'm getting out of this is that this woman is extremely inept. So, okay, I found out what she does for a living. Okay, here's what she does for a living. Like I said, she's a year younger than I am, so she's 51. She is a Christine Margaret Blasey Ford, known professionally as Christine Blasey. Or as I like to say, folks, blasé. Okay, very blasé. It's a con job, total con job, and they should be ashamed. So she's an American professor of, I didn't know this because I was trying to figure out what I knew she had a high degree. She is a professor of psychology. Oh, at Palo Alto University. And no, that's not in Nebraska. That's in California. Like she was saying, me and my beach friends. That doesn't look well. Yeah, I've known people who lived on the beach. There's a certain mentality about people who live on the beach. Now, I don't mean like people who live in this palatial mansion on the beach. That's different. But the people who just live on the beach, and they're not really ultimately well off, but the beach to them is everything. And, you know, they may work at a beach bar or something, and it's just, this whole mentality is really nutty. Oh, the beach is awesome, man. I know a guy, yeah, he's yeah. But anyway, it's just, that's what it is, Somebody's calling in the station. So, psychology professor, Palo Alto University, and a research psychologist at the Stanford University School of Medicine. Widely published in her field, she specializes in designing statistical models for research projects. Whatever the hell that means. So, this is where you shut the hell up. I swear. That was a call from some stupid robocall. Speak with the customer. And then, you know, nobody ever calls you one-on-one anymore as a person. You ever notice that? It's always a robot. And I love the ones where they try to make it sound like they're not. Hi there. Sorry I didn't catch you. If you got a moment, and you're like, I'm not falling for this stupid jerk. So the thing with psychologists, okay, they always have a psychologist or a therapist of their own that they go to, which some people don't know about, but they do, because they're fucked up themselves. And I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but they're screwed up. They're dealing with their issues, which is why they a lot of times decided to become a psychologist or psychiatrist. And the same with the psychotherapist. They have a therapist of their own. I think most people could actually benefit from some sort of therapist to go in and just talk to and shit. You know, that's why I do this. I just do this. But when I'm talking to you. And yeah, they do. They do. Because they're screwed up themselves. So it makes you wonder, it's like, well, if they're screwed up, why are they helping me? Doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter. It's just a thing. It's always been that way. Remember, Sigmund Freud, the great psychologist, he prescribed cocaine for a lot of people. He thought that was the greatest thing ever. It makes everybody feel great. And it did. It also killed a bunch of people. Hey, and they got into a bunch of situations where they were at parties and anyway. But yeah, so okay, that's what she does. She's a psychologist. Wow. All right. Well, that changes it all for me. I'm not. She just, for somebody who is well documented, as they say, or whatever. She seems very timid and unsure of a lot of things. And people say, well, look what's going on with her right now. I was like, no, it's not that. It's not that. She's answering questions, and she pulls that little crackly voice out, and is like, I just want to strangle her. Why, you little... Sorry. Oh, that would drive me nuts hanging out with this woman. I can tell you, I already know that. Oh, I couldn't hang out with her. Well, you know what you might want to do is, I think probably... Will you stop? Will you stop? It's like my hanging out with my sister. Everything you say gets analyzed. And and she talks in these clinical terms where it will drive you absolutely nuts. So in other words, you're just talking and stuff and you're angry or something. You're like, oh, I can't believe this. And instead like someone else who might go, oh, really? Oh, geez, that sucks. She'll I'm not kidding. She'll literally go, ooh, I can feel your tenseness. Or, ooh, you're really angry. I can feel that. I can sense that. Sorry. All right, well, they're going to take a break. Well, we're going to take a break here from this station, and we'll be back. All right, we'll be back, folks.